Hi there, welcome to Be a Learner. In this session, we are going to discuss some of the key concepts of Azure DevOps. So if you are a beginner to Azure DevOps, this is the place to start your journey to Azure DevOps. Also, we will be covering some of the key concepts of Azure DevOps, which you will not find easily over the internet. I highly recommend you to subscribe the channel if you have not done already. Here in this video, we are going to learn how do we create service endpoints in Azure. Basically, creating a service endpoint in Azure is fairly simple step. But do you really know how the service endpoints created internally? I'm on Azure DevOps project right now. Here in this project, I want to create a service endpoint so that I can deploy the application code to Azure resources such as web app, or if I want to create any resources with the help of infrastructure as a code using my CI/CD pipeline, then service endpoint is something which you need. Let's see how do we create a service endpoint. So if you are in a project, go to the settings here, scroll down. Here is the service connection. You can see I don't have any service connection created. Here is my Azure account. I'm on the Active Directory right now. Let's create a service connection now. To create a service connection, you can use either of these options. So there are a number of different type of service connection which you can create. For example, if you want to provision any resource or connect to any Azure resources, you can choose either of these four options. If you want to connect to Bitbucket, choose this one, Chef, Docker. If you want to connect to any of the GitHub repository, then you can use these connection endpoint. Create a connection endpoint with GitHub. Or if you want to connect to a Jenkins CI/CD pipeline or Jira or Kubernetes, basically it has everything which you want to connect to your resources. So service endpoint is the place which provides the connectivity between Azure DevOps and your target resource type. So here in this video we are going to focus more on Azure Resource Manager because we want to connect to our Azure subscription using the service endpoint. So I'm going to choose the Azure Resource Manager. I'm going to click on next. Multiple subscription, then you can go ahead and select the management group. Here right now the subscription portion is selected, so you need to provide, if you remember, I am on right now on a manual selection, so I need to provide following details like subscription ID, name of the subscription, service principal ID. So it is assuming I have already created a service principal ID which I need to provide here, and the service principal secret basically which it is saying service principal key. If you are using a certificate to your service principal, then you need to provide a certificate, and then last you need to provide the tenant ID. Once you provide all those details, you need to click on verify, so it basically verifies your account. One thing to remember here is if you are providing it or configuring it manually, make sure the service principal has the contributor access to your service Azure subscription. This is what the essential it requires. Once you have all these details provided, you just need to give the name of your Azure subscription and the description. Once you have all the details, click verify and save. The service principal will be ready. I won't go into the manual way. Once you navigate to automatic creation of service endpoint, it will ask you to connect to your subscription using your username and password, and it makes sure you have the access onto the Azure subscription. Currently I am administrator on my subscription, that's why I'm able to connect to the resource group. I'm able to connect to this particular subscription box. Here again, if you want to choose any specific resource group, if you want to target this service endpoint to a specific resource group, you can choose a resource group. Many organizations wants a dedicated service endpoint per resource group, so that you are controlling your service endpoint by not to allow connection to the multiple resource groups or multiple environments. So basically one service endpoints targeted to one resource group, so that it is restricted to a certain resource or collection of resources. But if you have requirement wherein your service endpoint has required to connect to the multiple resource group, then this is not the recommended option. Now provide the name of your resource group connection. Here I am going to provide learning SC service endpoint. Once you have the details available, click on save. It is setting up the connection. So basically what it will do, it will create the service endpoint on your behalf, and by creating a service endpoint, basically it will, first of all, it will create a service principal. So if I click on the manage service connection role, I should be able to view the details of my connection, service endpoint connection which is created, or the connection detail of the service principal which it has created. So you can see it has point to the organization name, and then the name of the project, and then name of the app registration or the service principal which it has created. Now if I check the connection details to the subscription, this is the subscription. Now if I go to the access control management, I should have the role assignment details available with that connection. This is the one which it has created recently. So now you can see the service principal. By creating a service principal, it has basically created a service endpoint, it has created the service principal, and then assign a service principal as a contributor access to the service to the subscription. So now if I'm going to create any resources, access any resources within Azure within this particular subscription, I should be able to access it from my Azure DevOps using the service endpoint. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching this.